Hey guys, so today I'm going to read on the digital mode because lots of people say कि उनको फॉलो नहीं कर पाते जो भी मैं पढ़ती हूँ, तो इसलिए आज मैं डिजिटल मोड पर पढ़ूंगी. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. 30 September 2023 Avni. My new wallpaper. I am not particularly grumpy or unpleasant in the mornings, but let's say I am also not like a Barbie on crack. So the fact that I woke up this morning with a smile on my face even before my eyes had fully opened is journal worthy. The sheer curtains drawn across the balcony door dance in the slight draft, entering the room, causing the golden rays of the sun to form waves and pattern on the wooden floor. I slid my hand over Aman's on my waist and let the familiarity of his skin fill my heart. Wow, so one night with the man, and I would woken up as a roomy knockoff. But as much as I loved every bit of snuggling with him in bed, there is only so much a girl can be dreamy about when she desperately needed to pee. I could feel Aman's steady breath on my neck, so I knew he was fast asleep. I carefully plucked his hand from my waist and slid off the bed. As and after that, I picked up my phone from the nightstand and tiptoed to the tiptoed to the bathroom. My business done. I stood before the mirror, looking at the girl with crazy bad hair and flushed pink lips. So, this is what writers mean when they describe the morning after look, without ever mentioning its inevitable companion. I have two words for you. Morning, breathe. I quickly fished out my toothbrush from my toiletry pouch and tied my hair into a top knot, a wash moisturizer, lip balm, and a mild spray of perfume later when I am somewhat last night. Last night I sat on the edge of the marble bathtub and pulled up the triple decker chat window and quickly typed, Guys, Maya, do we still like him? Ria, you were up early or did you not sleep? Me, hehe. Ria, oh my god, how is it? Me, I'll tell you everything when I am back home, but guys, my brain is mush right now. Ria, oh my god, I can't wait. Maya, are you happy, Annie? Me, I am more than. Okay, just had to tell you this. Gotta go now, bye. Ria, have fun. I scrolled through my contact list and quickly pulled up Martin's contact card. He was away that weekend with his current girl on a bartending retreat in Goa, so I was not sure if he was going to answer my video call. So early, early in the morning, but before I could finish that thought, the only reason you would call me this early in the morning after your first night in Missouri hai to be the you to be that you said hot rod Rena. Just say yes and make my day, babe. I need at least one of us have to started the weekend with bang. He started into the screen expectantly. I opened my mouth to tell him but decided to just go with a light nod of my head and tight shutting my eyelids. Fuck yes, he exclaimed. See, I replied. He is sleeping in the bedroom and you are on your phone in the bathroom when you could be staring at his godlike naked body right now. Bitch, the fuck is wrong with you? Hang up and go juggle his money bags. Ah, he hung up. Right. Stepping out of the bathroom, I saw throw blanket from the couch around my shoulders and tiptoed to the fancy espresso machine placed next to a wicker basket full of coffee pots of all kinds light, medium roast, dark decaf beside another basket with a million different tea bags and pouches of brown sugar. Coffee and coffee mugs selected, I faced off with the espresso machine. I stared at it, trying to figure out how it worked, then gave up, finishing my phone out of my pocket so I could Google a solution. It's the bottom at the bottom right of the machine, baby. I screamed and turned to find Aman smiling at me from the bed, complete with wild bad hair and sleepy eyes, dimples on full display, and those perfect lips. Aman, you scared me. I pressed my palm to my chest. Good morning, he said in a sleepy voice. Why are you out of bed? Already, come back. He patted the dot. I was going to wake you up with coffee and then we were going to snuggle. Now you have ruined their plan by waking up before I could figure out how this stupid coffee machine works. He laughed, pushed off the covers, and stepped out of the bed, walking over to me. He pulled me to his chest and rested his chin on the top of my head. I like waking up to you finding with my coffee machine in the morning and coffee machine being code for I started. He tugged me into the hug a little tighter, laughing. Then he reached over and pressed the button at the bottom right, and the espresso machine kicked into action with a sharp whistle that turned into a rumble and then a long, loud hiss. Wow! So if you had not woken up by yourself, this little shit would have put a spinner in my plans anyway. I said. Was now facing the coffee machine and still standing behind me proceeded to make us coffee. Why don't you go pretend to be asleep and I'll wake you up with surprise coffee? He whispered into my ear, and we then can we snuggle? I whispered back. 100% yes, I said and dug out from the under his arms and got into bed. I sat there under the covers that smelled deliciously of Aman, watching him walk to me in his boxers with a tray of coffee mugs and biscuits, the sexiest man alive. I reached for my phone and opened the camera app. My phone screen would now have a new wallpaper. Gagan's here. He is meeting us for breakfast in 30, Aman said without looking up from his phone. We would finish our coffee, spend another hour playing tonsil tennis and other spicy games at grown up place and were now lying back in a bed scrolling through our phones like a real couple. Will everyone be there? I asked, swinging my legs off the bed. Oh yes, the Ranas love their breakfast table catch-up sessions, he said, looking at me, then reaching out to stroke my cheek. He added, they are looking forward to having you there. I raised my eyebrows and stretched my mouth wide to indicate what I was feeling. Sit. Maybe it will be just be the family, but you can stay in it if you feel like joining us later. I can always. No, I cut him off. I want to be there with you. Okay. He propped himself up on his elbow and kissed the tip of my nose. Now we need to take a shower. We? I asked. No. Yes, I chuckled. Without missing a beat, Aman sprang out the bed, scooped me up, and carried me to the bathroom. His eyes not leaving mine for even a second. He set me down on the bathroom vanity and kicked the door shut behind us. And we went on the leather each other's bodies till they were nice and for me. And then engaged in a deep, passionate love making. Just kidding. I was still sore from last night. All the nicknames with that Martin had given Aman were actually quite accurate and quite tense about the breakfast coming up, and we had to keep an eye on the time. So yes, we kissed and there was a lot of touching, but just a sour it was. Not that it did not have its moments, particularly the one of completely vulnerability when I sang my sour voice and Aman laughed in my face, but I blamed in the expensive marble, not the right acoustics for my middle class bathroom voice. A little while later, I was rumming through my suitcase looking for the breakfast appropriate outfit Maya had so carefully curtained for me when Amma stepped out of the bathroom looking like a dream in a pair of light blue baggy jeans and grey knit sweater and sat on the couch to wear his white sneakers. Watching me scramble around, he walked over. Nobody cares what you wear, baby, he said, kissing on the side of my head. As if I hopped and popped into my black leggings and powder blue oversized sweater and rushed to the bathroom where I quickly filled in my brows, put on some blush and lip gloss, and tied my hair into a low ponytail. I rushed out again and pulled on the tan boots Maya had packed in, and sat down on the bed to take a breath while a serene looking Aman leaned against the coffee table with his arms folded across his chest and a smile on his face. I am not late. Okay, you just get dressed in minutes. Minus 3 seconds. That's not me. I pointed on finger at him I didn't say a word. He raised his hands in the air. Shall we? Where is your bottle of aftershave? Can I have it for a moment? Why? He asked, walking to the bathroom to fetch it. Because I said as he handed me the bottle, and I undid the cap of my love potion and dabbed two dots behind my ears and on both my wrists. I need to smell exquisite. Creep, he laughed. Let's go. So here we are on the back of porch of Aman's lavish home. The air was chilly and the sky bluer than I had ever seen in Mumbai or Pune. The lush lawns were interrupted only by a near Olympic sized swimming pool a little ahead, a long table made from the most exotic piece of natural would have been set for breakfast. Aman's parents were there already and broke into wide smiles as they spotted us walking towards them hand in hand. Good morning, my loves. Aman's mom sounded as gleeful as ever. Slept well? Good morning, Ma, Aman replied, pecking her on the cheek. Morning, Papa. Good morning, I slept very well, thank you, I said. Good morning, beta, come sit. Aman's dad rose and came around to pull back the chair opposite his. Thank you, uncle. I took my seat and Aman sat on my left. This looks great, I said, glancing around the table to see at least 100 items laid out. All of it looked delicious. I had not realized I was so hungry until the smell of steaming hot waffles reached my nose. Aman must have noticed my eyes light up because he picked up the plate of waffles and served us both and went on to offer the fruit platter to his parents. Meanwhile, his mother had poured me a glass of what looked like a apple juice and placed it on the table in front of me. It's from our apple garden, fresh as it could be. Taste, she said, smiling wide. I took a sip, realizing the scent of taste of fresh apples long forgotten. Thanks to my habit of ordering on store-bought juice out of Tetra packs. It's amazing, I said, gesturing perfect with my fingers. I turned my attention to the tall plate of waffles before me as the others. Engaged in a regular family chatter, servers walked around us every few minutes, offering omelets and parathas, breads, and more waffles, jams and cheese and cold cuts. I think I ate like a starved cave woman. I was almost done with my second glass of apple juice and my waffles and my jam when a deep voice interrupted the chatter at the table. I see everyone is here already. Gagan, Aman's mother, threw both her hands in the air, her face radiating joy. Aman and I turned to see his elder brother walking towards jeans and had the same slightly cold look in his eyes and the defiant upward tilts of his chin that I remembered from Aman's party a few months back. He gave his parents polite hugs and walked around the table to greet Aman. You look good, man, he said as Aman stood up and the two exchanged some sort of complicated handshake that ended in them and twinning their right arms and half hugging each other. I wish I could say the same. London really has worn you down, Aman replied, mischief in his voice that earned him a playful punch in his gut. And then Gagan turned to face me and the famous Avni who has our man wrapped around her little finger. Good to see you again. He gave me a tight smile. I smiled back politely and extended my hand. Hi, good to meet you. Again, I said evenly. Too soon to be sure of that, Avni. We don't really know each other yet. He winked as he shook my hand quickly and went on to take the empty seat next to his mother. Suddenly, I felt the air sweep in a way I could not quite understand. I told myself that Gagan was much older and maybe his sense of humor just was not as easy and free flowing as Aman's. I had reasoned after we would first met at Haman's place that he was perhaps awkward during first encounters. Many people were, and that this time in Missouri would be different, but here I was. My guard packed just as I had begun to get comfortable. So, Avni, where do you work? He asked as he cut into an omelette with surgeon like precision. I began. Let's not security tie. Scanties, the guest already Gagan. Aman's dad cut me off. It's her first time in our home. He smiled through his voice was graver. Then I remembered it from just a minute ago. I turned his smile and went back to my plate of buffets, but not before. Noticing Aman's parents signaling to each other with their eyes clearly, sweetly was not the family's strongest suit. Avni, come, you have to see my tulip garden. Aman's mom peeped up. I would love to, auntie. I understood what she was doing and was thankful for it. Come on then. Let the boys talk. So she came around and extended her hand towards me. I felt Aman's hand lightly squeeze my thigh under the table, encouraging me to go with his mother. I stood up and took his mother's hand. Don't mind Gagan, beta. He takes a bit of my time adjusting to people, especially if they are new to the family, she said in a low voice as she led me away. That's fine, auntie. Everyone says that about me too. She turned to meet me, my eyes, and flashed me a smile as I walked beside her. Her arm linked into mine. The tiny knot in my chest slowly loosened. She had something to tell me about. As I walked beside her, her arm linked into mine. The tiny knot in my chest slowly loosened. She had something to tell me about every bush and tree we walked past on our way. She knew each one intimately, names, ages, varieties, how they change the season, odd facts, and I let myself settle into the warmth of her company. The last time I had walked through a garden was when I was 7, holding my mother's hand. A trip had been arranged from school to Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and my parents had followed the school bus on their scooty to make sure I would be okay. It had always taken me time to make friends, and they were worried that I would be sitting alone somewhere while the other kids ran around and enjoyed themselves. They were right, of course. So when my mom arrived and saw me standing by off on our own little walk around the play area, so she told me all kinds of stories, none of which I remembered now. But what I did recall was walking barefoot on the grass, my hand in hers and her voice reassuring me softly with stories. I remembered feeling safe and not alone. The memory felt so real that it scared me, and I shook my head to clear. Here we are, Auntie said, her eyes shining in anticipation as we reached a narrow, cobbled path that I assumed led to the tulip garden. Give me a second, auntie, I replied as I let go of her hand to undo my boots so I could take them off when I walked on the grass barefoot. Aman, what I am going to what I am not seeing here. When did you get in last night? I asked Gagan as Avni left the table with Ma. Late. He said, when did you get here? Late evening. I was planning on flying out immediately after the party today, but if you are staying on for a day, I'll stay too. He looked at me and flashed his usual half smile. I responded with a thumbs up. I felt so good to be back home with everyone there. It had been a while. Gagan was 3 years older than me, but he was like a secondary parent figuring in my life, and his general demeanor had always been authoritative and reserved. I had grown up going to him for a life advice on everything parents, career, friends, love. He was the pragmatic one, annoyingly practical, and I would needed that outlook more times than I could count. We finished our breakfast chatting about work and life in general and left the table to walk into the house. The sun was getting hotter and some of our relatives and family friends had slowly started coming in. We followed Papa into the living room where we saw Sally bustling around, welcoming Arvind uncle, Papa's oldest friend from school and his family. Gagan and I followed Papa to greet them and then moved to the tea room. Anxious, Ramesh, our housekeeper, arrived asking us if he could get us something, and Gagan and I agreed on tea. How is office? Gagan asked as we settled on the couch. Office is great, learning a lot from doing things myself, though Papa's very much there when I needed him. Of course, and it's been good to have up, I replied, grinning, and he nodded in agreement. How have you been, though? I asked. We haven't caught up properly in our over years. Busy with work, global marketing had now, so the glint in his eyes reappeared and he sounded almost sheepish. What the hell? And you are telling me this now? I punched his arm. Do Ma and Papa know? Not yet. I don't want them making a big deal of it. Dude, it's a huge deal. We all know how hard you have worked for it. Yeah, but everything does not need to be celebrated with catering and tent and in the backyard. He replied, if I tell them, Ma will throw another one of her parties and I am maxed out of small talk honestly. They are proud of you, Gagan. I grinned widely and thumped him on the shoulder. So am I. He nodded, his lips stretching to one side in a semblance of a smile. But tell me about you. I see a lot has changed from the last time we caught up. You have someone in your life now? Life's good, great actually. Avni makes it better in every way. I was about to tell him how we met when I noticed the expression on his face change. I knew this looks only too well. Something going on? I asked. You are quite stupid when it comes to matters of the heart. He turned away to pick up one of the two cups of tea Ramesh had left on the coffee table. I reached across and picked the other up for myself. Settling back, I said, tell me what is this about? You seem to have set all these levels of commitment in your mind that bringing a girl home makes everything serious or telling Ma about your feelings change things. When are you going to get a little practical in life and see things as they are and not as they could be? Okay, I have got a bone to pick with that tablet we have for a mother. But hey, it's not like that. I have been with Avni for a few months now and I am feeling good about this. Isn't that what you said about the last one? What was her name? Anchal. He looked up from his cup. Anchal and I had been together for a few months before I spoke to Gagan about her. She was not my brightest decision, I have to admit, but Avni was nothing like her. Words were not any harsher than they would be if this were a discussion about anything else but something about his refusal to give Avni or anyone else a chance did not sit well with me. You have barely spoken to her, Gagan. I think you should give her more than one teeny conversation before you make up your mind about her, I said, a little more curty than I would have liked. I knew Gagan was looking out about anything else, but something about his refusal to give Avni or anyone else a chance did not sit well with me. We have barely spoken to her, Gagan. I think you should give her more time. Sorry. Then one teeny conversation before you make up your mind about her. I said a little more cutty than I would have liked. I knew Gagan was looking out for me, but this time I decided would not back down. Avni deserved. Avni, comfortably numb. This one is Red Cross Tulip, and that one is Lady Tulip, Anil's favorite. My favorite, however, is the Yokohama Tulip. It's right ahead here. Aman's mother and I were walking through never ending rows of gorgeous flowers. When she had mentioned a tulip garden, I would imagine a few tulip bulbs scattered aesthetically across a lawn. Instead, I was now walking through what looked like a tulip fields of the Hugui. Our company did a lot of work with the language with the Japanese government in the early days. We still do. The consul general gifted me a bouquet when I visited Japan in 1997. I knew immediately that I had to have this in my garden. It was also easier to fly back with seeds then. It was not as strict as it now. She proudly ca- She proudly kissed the gorgeous yellow bulbs. They are stunning, auntie, just beautiful. They really were. Her love. Here, love. She went down, plucked a few stems, and handed them to me for your besides table. They will bloom some more tomorrow. See? smiled at the flowers, and then at me. Thank you. I brought the bunch of to my nose to take a sniff. Oh, tulips don't really have scent, she said. Would not expect that, would you? From the way they look, I nodded, and we walked on. Me and her footsteps till we reached a glass house in the center of the garden. She opened the door and let me in. It was beautifully lit by the sun streaming in. A long dinner table neatly laid took up the most of the space inside, with at least 20 intricately carved vintage looking chairs arranged around it, cozy but still very stilly. We like to eat our brunches here in the winters. The sun keeps us warm, and I love listening to the chatter of a big group of family and friends over food and mimos. She took the seat at the head of the gigantic table, and I placed the bunch of tulips on it and looked the seat next to her around the immediate corner. Aman tells me you work at the bookstore. That must be magical. Tell me about it. She rested her chin on the palm of her right hand and leaned forward, looking at me intently. Oh, it's the best. It's called Bombay Bound. What a lovely name, she exclaimed. Yeah, it's beautiful space. My best friend Ria's family owns it. I work there part time in the morning usually. How I would love to spend my morning surrounded by the smell of. That's my favorite part 2. I loved. Her family is sweet and I get to earn while getting through classes. I love it. I can imagine living in Mumbai as a student is criminal. Everything is so expensive, and I'm sure your big fat law looks must cost a limb. You have no clue, I said, glad that someone understood. Actually, I studied law too. I wish I had been smart like you and taken up a part time job alongside my studies. By the end of every month, I was scraping leftovers. She laughed until I married Anil. Then we scrapped leftovers together. I could not help laughing. I remembered Aman telling me about his parents starting the company in his uncle's garage and building it up from there. We spent close to an hour in the glass house chatting about everything from law to our hobbies to Aman. She told me funny stories from his childhood that I carefully filled away in the must tease Aman about this cabinet in my head. I told her about my childhood and growing up with Aji in Pune, and she shared how she would always thought of Pune as a lovely place to live in and never really got to meet my grandparents. She said, I wish I had. They passed away when my mother was still a teenager, but she had the most beautiful memories of them that she would tell me about as bedtime stories. I am sorry, that must be rough. I reached across the gently placed my hand over hers on the table. Not at all. I only have the most amazing stories as memories of them. And their pictures. She paused. Oh, I must show you the family albums. You have to see how gorgeous my grandma's dimples were, she exclaimed, clapping her hands together. So that's where Aman gets his form, I said. Haha, yes, he does. Come. She got up and extended her hand to me again. Our minds are such a weird little places, I thought as we made our way back through the rows of gorgeous flowers. It stores our insecurities and is so close to our joy and laughter like rooms sharing walls. Sometimes a loud noise on one side, a chaos in the other, and sometimes the wall is so thick that you forgot there is a room on the other side at all. As we walked back to the house, I let my mind wander to place where there are no walls, only postcard photos of Yokohama tulips and people sharing a laugh with in the warmth of sun. It was 11:30 am by the time we got back to the house. A lot happened already. Gagan's brusquins, this memory, not not with not with standing spending time with Aman's parents, especially his mother, had made me feel a lot more confident about my decision to have taken this trip with him for a large part of my life. Well into my late teenager teenage years, my biggest achievement had been making more than one friend whose family I was comfortable around. So this was new to me, and being able to enjoy it made my heart sing. As soon as we stepped into the living room, Aman pulled away from an intense discussion that he was having. Let us together to join them, cupping Aman's face in her hands with extra affection as they passed each other. Had fun? He asked, taking my hand in his. Yes, she is so sweet. That's where I get all my sweetness from, he said with a smirk. You really think highly of yourself, don't you? Might I jog your memory to a time not too long ago when you took my name very highly yourself, he said, with mischief in his voice. That earned him a slap on his chest as I searched him and glanced quickly towards his family, who were standing quite close to us, to see if they had overheard. He laughed, then squeezed my hand and said, Okay, listen, I have to go meet some of Ma and Papa's friends. Something tells me you would prefer reading a book in the room while I am away. You know me so well. I'll see you upstairs in a bit. He gave me a quick peck on the cheek before walking towards a big group of people greeting each other raucously at the far end of the living room as I made my way upstairs. 30 minutes later, I was in our bed, staring up at the ceiling, my book resting upside down on my tummy. I had not got beyond two paragraphs since I would started, as my mind kept wandering to imaginary, mostly disastrous scenarios from the party later that evening. Me standing alone in a corner while Aman folded over laughing at inside joke with his family. Me spilling wine on the expensive ivory dress Maya had lent me to wear that evening, me drinking too much too quickly to get over my nervousness, and then walking up tomorrow regretting doing some shit like getting everyone to form a human pyramid for a group photo. The last one had the most potential to come to. I closed my eyes in dread. I threw my book down on the bed and got up to make some coffee. I would slept like a baby, but the breakfast binge was making me sleepy again. Or maybe it was just my overthinking brain. I would settle on the balcony couch with a cup when I heard a knock on the door. Come in, come in, I yelled, sure that Aman was going to walk in. Nobody entered. Instead, there were two more knocks. I walked over to the door and pulled it open, expecting him to give me one of those ma'am, your order for a hot man is here dialogues. It was Gagan. Hey, I said, trying to hide my shock in an awkward smile. Are you looking for Aman? He is. Hi. No, I was just with him. I was actually looking to have a word with you, he replied. Can I come in? You may come in, I said deliberately, correcting him as I stepped away from the door. The sore expression on his face was starting to get to me. All that expensive Ivy League education, and still this he stood in and sat down on the couch. I left the door slightly ajar and walked to the bed, but did not sit down leaning against one of the poster frames. I said, I have heard so much about you. We can cut the small talk. Ananya. Avni. Avni, sorry. That was rude. Avni, I knew that. That's okay. So, since you obviously have not come here for friendly banter, what's up? Yeah, he said, and then fell silent. I waited for him to voice whatever it was that was important enough for him to seek me out and call me by a I don't call me by a wrong name. I don't want you to taking this the wrong way, he started. I nodded, indicating I would not, and waited for him to continue. But Aman is long pause again. I was not sure if this was just his style or if he sucked at putting words together in general. You never knew. Staying away from home with such an unsociable personality, maybe that made one lose basic communication skills. Aman is, he said again, Naive. He looked at me. His gaze was this morning at the breakfast table but indifferent. What do you mean? I asked, confused. I mean, between the two of us, he is the emotional one. And sometimes he tends to make decisions that don't quite stand the test of time. You know what I mean? His right elbow flicked up. I could hear my heart beating in my ears. I don't. Sorry, I said awkwardly. I mean, don't read too much into this. He made sweeping gestures at the room into what? You being here with my family, oh. We are very protective of each other. We try to ensure that we prevent each other from making bad decision mistakes. I am not sure I understand. Didn't you think you would? He slapped his thighs and sprung to his feet. He took two very slow steps towards me. Have fun this weekend. Walk through the property. Enjoy the party. Get your service and then let things run their course as they must. He smiled tightly and walked to the door. Gagan, I called out. Are you asking me to leave, Aman? I am asking you to not get your hopes up. Usually that only brings disappointment, he said, half turning around, and then walked out and shut the door behind him. I froze, my eyes fixed on the door. What the fuck was that? I could feel chills running up my limbs to the center of my chest. I took a few deep breaths, trying to bring my brain back from the very unpleasant direction in which it was heading. I told myself that this whatever it was had to be misunderstanding, that maybe Gagan had misjudged something I had said or done and assumed the worst. Maybe he was tired. What could be the intention of being so square with me? Had he just called me a bad decision and a mistake? Had I not met him warmly enough this morning? No, Avni, no. This is not the time to doubt yourself. Aman was right next to you at the breakfast table. If you were in any way rude or disrespectful, he would have told you, you know that. I took another deep breath. His mother apologized for Gagan's. I sat down on the bed and drew doubt around me. Nobody had ever spoken to me like that before. I had been in my fair share of uncomfortable rooms, but I had never been made to feel so unwanted or undeserving, and that is what Gagan's word had made me feel. Unwanted. I pulled my phone out to call Aji or Maya or anyone I could talk to, but the door opened again and Aman walked in, a spring in his step. He had a basketful of fruits and breads in one hand and what looked like a box, sweet in other. I almost expected you to be napping, he said breezily as he placed the basket on the console table. He walked over with the box of sweets and sat next to me on the bed. These are Masuri's best gulab jamuns, he said excitedly. It took one out and brought it too close to my mouth. I had Ramesh order them fresh this morning. I took a bite and let the sugar rush calm my nerves down to some semblance of normalcy. You look you like? He asked as he took a bite too. I smiled, whipping the syrup trickling down my chin with the back of my hand. You should say something. He should. No, no, maybe he knows. How? He would not. No. He would never let Gagan talk to me like that. I trusted him. I had no idea with what Gagan had meant, but for sake but for the sake of sanity, I was willing to consider that it was all a big, ugly misunderstanding. Would it be right to make a big deal of it by discussing it with Aman on the morning of his parents' anniversary dinner? Yeah, maybe not. Aman was saying something, obviously, to the storm raging inside me. Sorry, didn't hear that, I said. I was saying, baby, that I have more things to show you that you will love. Come on, we have to gotta go. Before I could respond, he got up excitedly and strode out of the room. Aman, how do I slow down time? Dress warm and meet me downstairs. I called out to Avni as I took the stairs down. I called Ramesh to have the car readied for us, and as I made my way out, I passed my parents conversing animatedly with another lot of friends who had just arrived. I made a mental note to chat with Ma about her small gathering of close families and friends. Way of going about this party, any party, really had, and waved politely at them as I walked by. Dad's vintage red Hindustan Contessa was waiting for me in the driveway, glistening in the sun. Papa never tired of telling us the story of how he had brought this beautiful after their company had closed and its first big client deal. We must have heard it at least 5 times a year since we were old enough to listen to stories, and at every family Diwali card party after his third drink of whiskey. The high point of the story for Papa was when he had told Ma he would won it in a lottery, so she would not throw a fit. He guffawed loudly every time he narrated that bit and then went over to Ma to hug her while she sat shaking her head. Ma always joked that she would raise 2 kids, but Papa had raised 3. Contessa was his firstborn child. It was the first thing he had got transported to Missouri when they decided to move from Mumbai, and not a day passed without Papa polishing it squeaky clean before his morning runs every day. It took me many years to gain Papa's trust enough to take her for a spin. Gagan still did not have that privilege because he banged up the first car he got when he joined college. But the Contessa was ethereal, as as much as I loved driving her around the town now. As a child, I would simply take my book and sit inside her while she was parked in the garage. She felt like a friend, a place of comfort. So when I decided to show Avni around town, I knew I had to take the Contessa. Ramesh handed me the keys from across the hood, and I walked around to get into the driver's seat. Oh my god, who is this? Introduce us. Please, I looked through the window on the passenger side to see Avni. Her eyes wide. Oh, walking around the car, her hand stroking the side. I laughed and straightened my left arm over to open the door as she came around the back. Meet my dad's firstborn child, I said. She is beautiful. Avni got in, pulled the door gently shut like it was a precious, fragile object that needed to be handled with care. I beamed, put the car into gear, and drove out. Every trip I would ever made to Missouri included one afternoon of driving through the lanes of the town, getting a coffee and cake at my favorite cafe, and then driving uphill to catch the most magnificent sunset. My date was usually Ma or our caretaker's twin toddlers, but today I had with me the one person with whom I wanted to share all my favorite things to do. We drove through the gorgeous hills as the radio shuffled between songs and presenters. Where we are going? Avni asked as she turned to face me. She would roll down her side of the window few inches to breathe in the fresh mountain air without freezing her bottom nose off. But before that, she would reach over the zipped my jacket all the way up to my neck and planted a quick kiss on my cheek. To get some coffee or hot chocolate to warm you up. Okay, she signaled a yes with beaming smile and went back to watching the trees rush by. She had been quieter after breakfast with family this morning. I had decided against asking her about what she was feeling. She was probably just overwhelmed together. We Rainas could get a little too much sometimes. In any case, Avni liked to take time to process things by herself and would figure if she wanted to talk about anything, it could equally be that I was reading too much into things. I slowed down as we made our way to Hathi Paw area and pulled into the parking space next to Balu Coffee House. Who's Balu? Avni asked, reading the old wooden signage above the entrance to the quiet cafe. Nobody knows, I replied. The owner was apparently drunk when he got this board mad. Every time he came here, his grandson makes up a new story about the cafe's name. I strongly recommended you ask him about. Maybe you will hear a version no one's heard before. She threw her head back, laughing. The coffee and six her here are the best, though, I added. We walked in and took a corner table overlooking the gorgeous valley, and I raised my hand to summon the waiter. We spent the next hour alternating between laughter, conversation, and comfortable silence as we took in the views of the beautiful town and sipped on the excellent coffee, mine, and the hot chocolates. Avni clicked pictures to send Aji, Maya, Martin, and Ria. I clicked picture of herself for myself. Where to now? She asked. You will see, I said, reaching over and weeping the chocolate milk moustache off her upper lip. I got up and held her cord for her. She slid her arms, though, slow and turned to face me with the cutest smile. What? I smiled back. It's just a strange when you are putting clothes on me, she said, grinning. I draped her scarf around her waist, spun her around, and pulled her closer. She squealed as she looked up at me, and I placed a soft kiss on her lips. I can't wait to be back in the room with you, I whispered. You are too far when you are not cuddling with me in bed. Not even now. Nope, not close enough. I kissed her again and turned her towards the door. Wait, she said and moved towards the billing desk where the owner's grandson was sitting at his usual place behind the counter. Hi, she said to him. Why is the coffee house named Balu Coffee House? They say there is a secret tunnel under the coffee house that leads to the grave of a man named Balu, and that he comes here at night to have coffee with the love of his life, who used to work here 200 years ago, he said, unblinking and impassive. Wow, she said, turning to me with his eyes wide. I laughed and thanked to the man as I led Avni towards the exit. Outside, she stood by the car, tapping her feet to stay warm as she waited for me to unlock it. I stopped a few steps away and pulled my phone out to take a picture of the girl I would call. I had got to call mine, looking stunning in the early afternoon sun against the backdrop of his gorgeous town. When had life become so fucking perfect? What could I do to slow down time? Avni, blame blame it on the mountains. Where to now? I asked him, looking out on the windows as we began driving further uphill. You will see, he smiled, giving my thigh a slight squeeze. We drove for another 10 minutes up through the mountain side till we reached the tabletop. There were no other cars in sight, no people. Aman parked the car near a makeshift shed and that had a bicycle kept inside it. It was colder up here, winter, and the clouds were so low I felt I could touch them if I wanted to. There was a lone bench that faced the valley, flowing off the edge of the flat land we stood on. I wished suddenly that I was the kind of person who viewed a landscape in numbers. You know how some people say, oh, this cliff must be 3000 meters above sea level, or this land must be around 9 acres, or it's so cold it must be as low as 8 degrees here. But here I was happy to simply be high in the hills and enjoying the crisp cold air. We settled on the bench and Aman put his arm around me, pulling me closer. This feels like something out of a movie, I said dreamily. It must be one of it. It feel like one. He lowered his head to kiss my forehead. That line can fit into a lot of conversation. I smiled tightly. He hugged me tighter. So, what's the story? I asked. About this place. Didn't you get you? I mean, why have we come here? What memories do you have of this place? None, he paused and then said, yet. He turned to hold my face delicately between the warmth of his palms and placed his lips on mine. My hands moved from my lap to the collar of his sweater. He winced a bit when my ice cold hands touched his warm skin and pulled me closer into the kiss. His hands moved from my face to my hair to my neck. I found my right leg moving of its own volition to fling itself over him, and in one swift movement I was striding Aman. Was it like me to lose all sense of place and just get into a full on makeout session with Hotman on a park bench in public? Absolutely not. But this was Aman. So fuck yeah. Our lips did not lose contact for a single second as our bodies started moving in urgent chaos. I felt a brush of cold air, his hands sliding up my sweater and resting firmly, almost possessively on my back. Instinctively, my hands moved. Jeans, you are never going to forget this place, I whispered as I undid the button and leaned in closer to kiss him. Promise, he whispered back. Promise. So that's all for today, guys. मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग.